Hey, thanks for watching this time lapse about this design for Envirolux energy systems. So one thing that I always do is start out with the style guide that's going to basically guide my way through the design to keep things consistent. So here you see that I'm really just fine-tuning the colors, getting the brand colors down, and expanding that palette with some supporting colors as well as some tints and shades. My next step is always the typography, and getting this down is really important so I don't have to worry about it too much when I get into the actual design. And so I just make sure I have a good type scale and choose the right fonts. So this isn't always the case, but in this particular project, I actually started with the wireframe as a starting point for the design. So I just took the wireframe and not exactly colored it in because I did change some things along the way, but I did use that as a starting point for the actual layout and hierarchy of everything. And from there, it really is just a matter of getting all of the components and elements down, including the buttons and the images and logos that we need. This part here is where I'm dropping in the logos that represent the companies and organizations that Envirolux has worked with. And that took a little bit of time for some logos just because those logos were complex and they weren't super friendly as far as getting them to a one color logo. So that's part of what I had to do. That's part of my job as well. Then here what I'm doing is taking the icons that were already on the previous site for Envirolux, and I refined them and made them a little bit bigger by putting them into a circle. That just helps them stand out a little bit more. One thing that I sometimes do, not always, but often, is include custom graphics that are necessary for the different pieces or different parts of the design. In this case, two of the things that Envirolux was really wanting to get across is the fact that they have a lifetime warranty, which is unlike most of their competitors, and the fact that they're also made in the USA, also unlike a lot of their competitors. And so what I did was create some custom badges for those two specific things that they wanted to call out. The actual layout and design for Envirolux didn't change too much. Like, it wasn't a super drastic change. Like, if you look at the previous site and compare it to this new one, it's not a huge jump in terms of the hierarchy and the organization of the content. I mean, there was definitely some structural changes and modifications and refining. But really what I try to do in the design was to clean it up, to really make it a lot more user-friendly. I also try to keep the design modern and use the brand colors in a way that wasn't too overwhelming. The previous design used so much red, it was just a little bit overwhelming. Additionally, the scope of the project was to keep things clean and simple and straightforward. We didn't want to go with super flashy components or super flashy animations or anything like that. The whole idea was to keep it super user-friendly. And in case you haven't noticed already, this design was done entirely in Figma. In fact, the sitemap or the site flow and the wireframes were also done in Figma. I make heavy use of components inside Figma to kind of speed up the workflow of the design process. Here in this section, I'm just using Figma's Unsplash plugin to drop in some placeholder images for the blog and the video section, primarily for the blog section. And then here I'm just dropping in actual real product photos into the product page mockup. One thing I should note is that I don't design every single page or even every single section. I focus on the key pages and layouts that are going to be different from each other, that have specific content or unique content, just to show what they'll look like. If you try to design every single page, obviously that's a huge time investment that really nobody wants to deal with, because it ends up meaning that you're spending hours and hours on things that aren't really going to matter too much because they're so similar to other pages, and also clients don't really want to wait around for that. Whenever possible, I try to make sure that I have actual real content, real text to put into the design mockup, and that's what I'm doing here. Here's that Made in USA badge that I created custom for Envirolux. The last bit that I included here was the prototyping of the actual design, so that they can get a feel for it before we actually went into building it out. And this is what it turned out in the end. If you want to learn more about it or just take a peek, just head over to envirolux.com. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.